welcome to this art talk today. I'd like to introduce you to Ian McKinnon. He's here today. He's got a presentation for you. If you'd like to ask questions, I'll leave that up to Ian, what he'd prefer, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So on with the show, Ian. Thank you.
All right. First of all, hello, everyone, and thank you. Thank you for not coming out, but coming in, I guess, in this virtual space this afternoon. I'm going to be talking about the three latest series of work that I've made that are interconnected. There's a lot of images, although it's scaled down because these are series of works and there's quite a few drawings to each series. So what I've decided to do, I have a PowerPoint, and what I'm going to actually do is just asking everyone to sort of sit back, and I'm going to just run through the PowerPoint with nothing to say, just very, very quickly. It should be about 5 minutes, and you're just going to see everything. And then I'm going to come back to the beginning and start to talk about the work and the evolution of the pieces and so on. So if everyone is ready, and I may bungle technology here, but anyway, I'm going to walk you through that. Like I said, it's about 4.5, 5 minutes, and then away we go. I'll start back at the beginning. So I have a little video here to start us off with. He said, hopefully, and whoop, come on. Well, it's not working. Let me just go back to that for a second. There we go. All right. Okay, that's it. And so I'll begin to say something here. So you saw some works from 3 series in chronological order. The first series, which is called Still Life, and the titling with a forward slash there, so that because in fact it's a case where the title and language mattered. Still life, because all of these drawings were drawing some observations of these very everyday objects, but also still life, as in life is still here, still with me, still in progress. The series began on a snow day in January in 2018. I teach at NASCAD, and it was a snow day. And I had been, for a few years, been thinking about icons in the Orthodox Christian tradition, and particularly about the fact that it's a completely different understanding of how an image works as opposed to our Western cultural tradition. So the idea that the image isn't something you move into, absorbed into, and you wander around and you have feelings and this, that, and the other thing, but for an icon in the tradition of Eastern Christian Orthodoxy it's the membrane through which the divine comes to you. So if you like to think, the vanishing point is you, not something inside the drawing. And so it's this idea that the image isn't passive, and that it's also this portal for an interaction that actually changes you. And that had been floating around in my mind for a very long time. And about 6 months before this very first drawing, so the drawing we're looking at is the very first drawing I did on that snow day, I discovered this gold gesso at Desserres. And gold is another, I suppose, a symbol for me. Gold in thinking of medieval and early Renaissance paintings, and also, yes, I mean, it's symbolic across so many cultures. And so there was this gold gesso, and I bought it not knowing what to do with it. And it sat for a good 6 months. In the meantime, I bought some small wood panels. So this drawing is 7 inches by 5 inches. It's standard wood panels that you can buy at Desserres. And I got up that morning, and a free morning, so to speak, and I decided to sit down and light a candle, a little tea light, and in a contemplative way, it was a pretty simple matter. I was going to draw from observation, which I had not done myself in many years, although it's something that I had overseen as a drawing instructor a lot. But my work prior, the series of work before these series, were large abstract paintings, you know, gloriously bright and colorful. And so this was returning to something for me. And so I sat down and I lit the tea light, and I drew it until the tea light kind of burned out. And something quite profound, I thought, was happening. Part of it was just being engaged in the here and now. And this would go on for over a year. And in the end, I produced 154 drawings. They were of everyday objects very early on, but the third or fourth drawing, I started drawing the matches that I was using to light tea lights, and then it was just whatever was around. I mean, you know, the apple in the refrigerator, my pencil eraser. As time went on, I guess it was revealed to me what I was doing, and I started to work out, I guess, a visual system that, at least for me, spoke to how I felt these drawings are functioning. Oh, and I should say they're colored pencil. I'm sorry. Sometimes when people see them quickly, they think they're paintings, but they were colored pencil. The lighting started to matter. And so no matter what I was drawing or how difficult I was trying to challenge myself in a, purely in the sense of someone who looks and draws, of difficult foreshortenings, and kind of challenged myself to look and really see what was there. But lighting and shadow became very important. And fairly early on, the lighting became stabilized. It was always coming from the same side, and the shadows became as important as the objects. These are different. I was going to say digitally, they're quite nice, and they what is lacking. And I'm just going to, this is not a very effective way, but they're very physical. And the light changes constantly. So depending on whether you've got artificial light or natural light flowing through, and they're very physical. And it was very important for me that they be this board, this very physical thing. So the gold became clearly for me about the sacred that holds what is created, what is based in time, which passes through time, and which will end dissimulate, be absorbed back into the sacred. And although that was never spelled out to anyone, and it wasn't spelled out on the gallery wall, I was hoping for the visual people, there would be that sense, well, there's light and there's shadow and there's a real sense of depth. And yet there's this gold that has no dimension to it, and that there's this tension between that which is outside of time and outside of space, that is ultimately holding this thing that is in that context. There would be much easier ways of doing this. For one, not working on wood and not working with pencil. And part of what I consciously was aware of was this thing of material resisting in a good way, of not being able to master. The pencil can never look like painting with a fine brush, and the wood pushing back so that there's always the gold, the sacred, breaking through this object. And that was perfectly fine with me. Yeah, the panels, my eyes got sore a lot. I would set up these situations, so I was looking at objects almost at eye level. The lighting and the panel I'm drawing on would have to be upright. The minute, if you put it down, then the surface you're working on is starting to foreshorten, and you'll completely misconstrue what you're doing on the board in relation to what you're seeing. So these were both enjoyable and also very challenging. The show, luckily, as the work was progressing, I was able to have a show at Arts Place in Annapolis Royal, and that was in May and June of 2019. Because the work, I felt the work needed to be installed, even though each piece, and I'm very fortunate, I've had pieces that have sold. However, there was something I wanted to recreate in a gallery space using all of those. An example here of my technical setup, very whatever was around. I've got my light clamped onto a piece of roll of duct tape, and it's sitting on a big bottle of gesso. But anyway, there was, and you saw the video. I'm going to talk while this is playing again, I think. Yeah. This was the night, because of a couple of hitches, as there always are installing. This was at midnight before the show opened the next day. So it was just a quick walkthrough. I'd like to think that this laying out of these everyday objects in a way that sort of, that made them, that almost hallowed them and made them very special. I think when people came into the show, there was a sort of sense of things, not reverence is too strong, and I don't mean reverence for the art so much, but just the experience of suddenly being surrounded by these things. And I found people often sat, there was a kind of a seating in the middle of the gallery and people sometimes just sit for a long while and then get up and go and engage with something. and it did seem perhaps to also create some sort of contemplative experience for the people in the gallery as well. In a kind of extraordinary sheer luck, the show ended, and within 5 days, I was asked if I could mount it at Hermes Gallery in Halifax in a week and a half. A very different space. In fact, I couldn't, there was no way I could mount it as I did at Arts Place, including having the shelving built to fix. So I had to go but a very different way. And in the matter of those 2 weeks, I decided to draw a self-portrait as in response to the title, I guess. And it was the second self-portrait in 42 years. The last one had been as an art student at NASCAD in 1978. And I sat down with a mirror and I decided it was time. Although it doesn't look like it, I had shaved my beard off, I guess as a bearing of all sorts. I've been behind a beard most of my life. And I sat down and did this self-portrait with no real plans for it. And then in the end, it actually went into the Hermes show as an extra piece. This didn't run for me when I went through. I'm going to see if I can get this. And I just, that's strange. There's actually a video here and it isn't playing as a video. And I don't know why. Oh, there we go. This will give you. So this is how the show ended up being installed in Hermes, all on one wall. I went in with no plan. I felt that the installation had to be a creative response, sort of in real time. And so I knew which I'd gone in ahead of time, measured the wall, sort of made a rough calculation that everything could go on that wall. And at my own height level, I put my portrait in the center of the wall, and then all the drawings are spread out on the floor, and I gradually pieced together that installation intuitively, just going from one piece to the next. So this comes to the, in fact, I did this drawing while the Hermes show was still up. I returned to a subject matter I'd used, I've been making, I've been around a long time. There have been times in my life when I've used family photographs as sources for my work. And I felt that I wanted to deal with the photos as objects, not as, I guess to start to think of family memory, my own memory, our histories, and certainly for a generation where there were physical photographs and how they're held in those photographs, but also in the same ways I did with the objects, that these two are physical things that will eventually disappear. And so I came up with this idea. I took a wood, one of the wood panels I usually work on, and I painted it with the gold gesso, and then I would tack the photographs in very strange way, in unexpected ways, vertically, and then move the panel so I'm looking at it in an angle. And so then in some ways a couple of things, the image is interrupted, and also it emphasized the kind of physicalness of this photograph. The title of this series is Harvesting Time, again with that forward flash. So I was very influenced by something I'd been reading by an Irish philosopher and theologian, I guess, or kind of metaphysics, named John Donovan, who died, I'm thinking, in the early 2000s at a fairly young age. And in a book I was reading, he was kind of talking about the stages of life. And there was this, to me, this very beautiful moment where he talked about the stage of life I feel I'm entering into anyway, as I come very close to my 64th birthday, where he talked about the soul harvesting time to take with it what it will need into the next stage. And I kind of looked at the family photographs and I thought, well, this is sort of what I want to do with the family photographs. The process of drawing them is that reconnecting with the histories, and it's like for all of us, it's not always good things. It's all those things that kind of about life and our relationships, but also letting it go. And what I found in the process of drawing from various photographs, that there was something in each one that somehow was precious that I was taking with me, and there were things that were being let go at the same time. So yes, so harvesting time, harvesting life for what you need to sustain yourself, and also that there's a time of life that's for harvesting. It just shows you the setup. Again, very I always thought if people could see me drawing, they think I was nuts. I mean, but anyway, sitting there with these things set up, but at least you see how I went about it. I would do things so, with this drawing, it was almost at eye level, but it was with the panel horizontal, and then I would do things like stick a little pin or a roll of tape and kind of get it tipped up and so on. I would do things to certainly to make them more interesting as objects and shadows. Another shot of the reflective, many of these photographs, because of their age and the time that they were printed, the gloss, the reflective light, I was very conscious of, and I think the light falling on the photos, which obscured the image, but also to me it was sort of the redemption of the memories and so on. Well, okay, there we go. Some of these are 7x5 and others are 14x11. Both those, that's true of all these series, or well, not the last series, but of these two series. It was one or the other. And usually the size was purely about whether I could actually see the object and draw it small, or whether it literally needed space for me to do it, because the objects are, including the photos, are almost life size. So this brings, this is just part of, well, the series is, I think, now finished, or it's kind of run itself, which is called full/circle. These are on 6x6 wood panel with gold gesso. Again, the title sort of having two nuances, the full circle in the sense of coming back to where one began, to have come full circle. And also the notion of the circle full, the circle replete, holding everything it needs to have. I've been thinking a lot about circles. I think circles are difficult. I think to see a circular painting, the circle, I think it's hard for the circle to be respectable in visual arts or something. Maybe because it's used a lot graphically and in all sorts of ways. So the first, and these are not in any chronological order, the very first drawing, which probably was maybe this one, the second one down on the left, around the time of lockdown, the beginning of the pandemic, and and certainly into the spring of March, April last year, I became incredibly aware of the skies. I mean, I've always looked out, very fortunate because I'm on the 12th floor at some amazing skylines, but, and I just started taking digital images. When I looked out the window, I'd be like, oh, look at that, or I'd step out on my balcony. And eventually I realized I somehow wanted to keep those. And so digitally cropped an image so that it was a circle, and then began to think about it on a square, and so it began. Again, colored pencil, aware of kind of the play. They're globe-like. They're not flat. There's sort of a deep space to them as well. I kind of like that fact that they were little worlds and not discs necessarily. And then when some of the lockdown here in Halifax lightened a little bit, and they actually opened the public gardens, then I as part of my every morning walk, every day, it would always end in the public gardens very early, just after the gates opened at 8. And I just started looking at water and reflections a lot and grabbing pictures on my phone. And so the second sort of theme to these is the theme of water and reflections and so on. Now, this is where taking pictures, I have a new iPhone well, this is what a drawing would look like if you had your nose up against it, I guess. But it also, I guess what I like about it is it shows from a distance, these look like, and I put a fixative on them that has a gloss. So, if you're looking at one of these and it's, a meter away from you, it almost is like a beautiful little finely painted image. And yet, again, you can see the grain and the marks. There's a lot of lively mark making. And yes, they do come across differently from a distance, which they're intended. And with all this work, there's a part of, there's something I'm conscious of, which is from a distance, things look very real and very fine. And as you get closer, you're much more aware of how they're made and the marks. And I think that speaks to something about in intimacy. As we get closer to things, we actually are less definite about what we're experiencing, which is perhaps a good thing. Just running through these again. Please, somebody ask me a question. I'm getting hoarse.
Okay. I had a few questions and I didn't write them down.
Well, I'm just going. This is one of the last of the circle drawings. So you'll see this gloss there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that it just doesn't come across for whatever reason when with the higher and more expensive technology of my new iPhone.
Ian, I'm curious, so do you draw pretty exclusively in colored pencil? Why do you prefer colored pencil to paint whatever?
Ah, good question. I think because if somebody once said I was a contrarian, and I probably am a bit. I like resistance. I think so. Painting, I love paint. I'm someone that when I see a painting that I really like, I want to go up and lick it, like icing on cake. And I have a facility with painting, but it's almost too seductive. I don't know if that kind of makes sense, but it's almost, it's not that it's easy, but it's seductive in a way. I find with the pencil, and something about the building up of the marks. So I have often said to students that, many ways of trying to talk about, the experience of drawing, of the mark making, it's like weaving, it's like knitting. It's this, I see drawing as constructive. It's like I'm building up out of all these little marks. And if, yeah, so I think there's something, I mean, that's me, that's 64, trying to give an intelligent answer. My earliest memories, and I was the kid that was always, my father used to laugh and say to people, it was a breech birth. He came out with pencils in his hand. It was, he was, but my earliest memories of drawing, the sound of it, the sound of the pencil, I work, and now these days I work in silence a lot, and there's that